I show this to veterinarians when I meet with them. I say, hey, I love your industry. I wrote a paper in 6th grade about it.
Welcome to the Insurance Refocused podcast, where we're highlighting real agent stories and how they are innovating to respond to the changes and challenges happening in the independent insurance industry. My name's Lindsay, and I can't wait to introduce you to my amazing co-host, who just so happens to be my mom, Carey Wallace. Mom, how you doing today?
Linz, I'm having a pretty good day because this is the first time we get to sit in the same room and podcast together. So I'm having a pretty good day. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's fun. I just walked in the door like 20 minutes ago and boom, on a podcast with one of our favorite peeps. How fun is that?
I know, man. I know. And he's smiling with teeth. Show me the teeth, man. There it is. I love it.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, today we are going to get into the topic of picking a niche, building a niche, what that looks like in practice and what it looks like from a success story. I've had the pleasure of working with Bill, who's our guest today, on building his niche in the form of the podcast. So super pumped to have you, Bill, from Butler and Associates Insurance Agency. Great to have you.
That's right. Butler and Associates Insurance Agency. I am super excited. You guys have been hounding me, both friendly hounding and needling to say, hey, you should come on our podcast. And I finally have relented. So here I am on Agency Refocused.
Yeah.
Or Insurance Refocused.
Definitely.
That's right. Agency Focused, Insurance Refocused podcast. That's the right plug. So
Correct.
Here I am.
There you go.
Correct. We're pumped to have you. It's been a long time that it took us to convince you to be here.
That's right.
Yeah, we didn't even have to pay you though. Like, listen, there's some people we actually pay to be on the podcast. So.
Wait a second.
That's not true.
Wait a second. Well, you guys owe me then. You can owe me.
I'm just joking.
Next drink's on us. How about that?
Deal.
All right. So a little intro. I'd love to give our listeners a bit of background into what niche you've chosen.
Yeah.
And why you've chosen that niche.
Sure. So, we didn't start as a niche insurance agency. We started as a generalist, like many insurance agencies do. Our Rough Notes article is a mom and pop insurance agency. And so, but I saw early on that the most successful insurance agencies out there in my local community had picked some kind of niche. They were focused on one sort of, market, division, whatever it might be. And so realizing kind of, early on that we probably want to pick something, but it's very hard to get off of that, the generalist train. And so, just over time, realizing that wanting to do commercial insurance, and then also that, as a primarily personal lines insurance agency, we needed to switch to commercial. And I'd be interested to get Carey's take on this to talk some numbers, but just thinking about wanting to diversify our book of business, because we were like 95% personal lines when I started with my parents in 2004. And, wanted to get into commercial insurance, but being a generalist commercial agent is very hard. So, that was our reason for starting in the niche. And then, we had some, we can get into it, but had some wins and lessons, a lot of lessons on what to do and what not to do, which I'm happy to share with the listeners on, some niches that I started with that didn't work out.
So, Bill, it's funny that you asked, my take on it, because I get asked that question all the time. Like, is it better to be a heavy commercial lines agency or personal lines agency? Or is it better to have a niche or not a niche? And the answer is it depends, to be quite honest. Like there are personal lines agencies that are heavy personal lines that are some of the most profitable agencies I've ever seen in my life, but they are high volume. They are referral based, and they are set up completely different than a generalist. There are high commercial heavy that are super focused, but there's risk associated with what they're doing because it might not be transferable to everywhere. So I guess the least profitable is the generalist, because you're trying to be all things to all people, and it's really hard to find those synergies. So I think there's lots of agents out there that are thinking, okay, how do I move from a generalist to have a niche? How did you make that jump from a mom and pop, for the way
Yeah.
you
Yep.
described it and the way that your thing was? How did you choose which niche, and what were some of the ones that didn't work out so hot? Like, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. And I think just to piggyback on what you said, the numbers that stick out to me and that stuck out to me, even 15 years ago, it's crazy to think about. 80+% of commercial insurance in the United States is sold by independent insurance agents. And I kept hearing that number over and over again, year after year. But then when I looked at our insurance agency, we were 90% personal lines. And I thought, well, wait a second. If 80% of the commercial insurance in the United States is sold by independent insurance agents and 90% of our business is personal insurance, what's wrong with this number? How are we ever going to get to that next level or plateau of success, financial wealth and freedom, whatever it might be? How do we get to that plateau or get past the plateau we're at if we're 90% personal lines when 80% of commercial insurance plus percent is sold through the independent channel? And then taking that a step further, what's the number, Carey? 80+%. Again, 80/20 rule is smaller than 1.25 million in revenue.
Yeah, 83% of independent insurance agencies are less than 1.25 million in revenue. And of that 83%, 50% are under 500.
And so I think when you look at that math, if you're not trying to grow your book of business in the commercial realm, you're never going to get past that 1.25 million threshold and probably the 500,000 threshold. And so, I looked at that 15 years ago and thought, how do we get into commercial insurance and we were a generalist commercial agency, and, they're $1,000 BOPs, $1,500 BOPs. And so, to then kind of jump into how I decided to start doing niche commercial insurance, I had a daycare facility. That was the first niche that I went after, was daycares, and received it as a referral from a financial advisor who I work with, and went and met with them. They were insured with Philadelphia. I had Philadelphia. I did a broker of record, had no idea what I was doing, but I'm not scared to try something. And I think that's one key, is don't be afraid to try a lot of things and find out what you want to do before you say, I'm going to do this and invest all of your energy. That's kind of what I did on the get-go. I invested all my energy. I said, hey, let's do daycares. Joined the daycare association, went out marketing and was door knocking and just kind of doing all those guerrilla marketing things that you try and do to get into a niche. Had zero success. 2 years, zero success. I'm a middle-aged male with no children. I'm an only child. I have no affinity, nothing in common. As I get joked with, I'm generally not a friendly, cuddly kind of person, which is like the antithesis of daycare providers. And so I really didn't have any reason to give them to want to do business with me other than, hey, I sell insurance. There was also a local provider in my marketplace. She belonged to association. She wrote newspaper article or newsletter articles, provided continuing education. Like she was in our market. And also, she had markets that I didn't have available to write daycares. So 2 years in, tried to build a niche, didn't really get anywhere. And so that was kind of my first entry into, okay, how do I work in a specific niche? Then I went into chiropractors as a second niche, and didn't do.
Why chiropractors? Like, why a chiropractor?
Why chiropractors? Well, great question. I had a couple another financial advisor, different, same office, different financial advisor said, hey, Bill, we have this really great disability product for chiropractors. You can do the property casualty, we'll do the disability insurance, and we'll partner on this stuff. And I said, hey, that's a great idea. Zero market research, didn't look at any numbers, jumped in with both feet because I'm very focused individual when it comes to this kind of stuff. And once I start working on it, I just get going. And so there's a chiropractic college here in the Minneapolis area. Went to the chiropractic college, joined the association, was going to, getting trade show booths and the whole thing. Had little squeezy spines, Butler and Associates, pop-up booths, the whole 9 yards. Chiropractors don't really have a lot of insurance needs. All of their employees are 1099s. They sell Chinese herbs under their own label. Their massage therapist doesn't have insurance and rents the back room. They're in a strip mall. They don't have any workers' compensation insurance. Their total annual insurance premium is $2,000 a year.
Ooh,
and they don't want to pay that much.
Right.
Yeah.
And so just not a really good market to go after. Not that chiropractors don't need insurance. They just don't have enough insurance to make it worthwhile to invest time and energy into working with them to try and insure them. 2 years working with them, didn't really make any headway. Actually sold 0 insurance policies to chiropractors.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
I did insure
That's a big lesson, though. It's a really big lesson. You got to do a little market research and find out and listen, Bill, every single person out there that is an entrepreneur that runs their own business, that is thinking about it, has done exactly what you described, but they're not willing to talk about it. So the reality is that's the whole point of having these conversations is for someone else that wants to start. Like, listen, learn from the mistakes of other people, do a little research is the thing, right? Yeah.
When you picked like veterinary insurance, what was because you've gone all in, you've got book,
burned the ships,
podcast. Yeah. You've got all of the things in order to do it successfully. What made veterinary a perfect recipe for you?
Well, I don't know that there's any perfect recipe for any agent. There's hurdles, but what happened was, to piggyback again on what Carey said, the issue with saying, well, I did 2 years at daycares and didn't have any success, and I did 2 years with chiropractors and didn't have any success. What I did learn was how to build a niche. So then when I found the right niche for me, which was veterinarians, and I just relayed this on another podcast, but when I decided to do veterinarians, my mom walked into my office like 10 days after I'd said, yeah, I'm doing veterinary. We're going to insure veterinary practice. And I had a logo and I had marketing and I had a website built and I had all of these kind of foundational pieces in place. And she said, how did you learn how to do this? And I said, well, I've had 4 years of experience learning how to build a niche. And so when I wanted to build a niche for veterinarians, I was just able to transfer all of that knowledge. The failure was not selling any insurance. The success was learning how to do the thing. And so then when I said, okay, I want to do this thing, I just knew how to do it. And so join an association, research the marketplace, learn the lesson of, okay, is there enough premium volume and revenue under this market of insurance? And there is for our agency, maybe not another one, but there is for our agency to say, yeah, we're going to invest time, energy, resources into this. And then, as you said, Lindsay, go all in on it. And, that's what we've done since 2017.
Yeah. So once you chose veterinary, you went all in on it. Were there any internal challenges? So anything like carrier market access that you had to build for yourself? Did you have to build new processes?
A little bit.
Were there any internal challenges?
Yeah. So internal challenges, it's, when you're trying to build a niche, we still have, all of our existing clients that we have to service. You really want to do the new shiny thing, but you've got to, answer emails and send certificates of insurance and process E&S renewals and billing and that sort of stuff. We also did in the process, have COVID. So that was an adventure as I was trying to build everything. We had just launched with a couple associations. February of 2020, we had launched with a new association, big marketing buy. We were going to go, all in on that. That got buzzsawed for, 14 or 15 months. Also did have an agency acquisition in there that we had in February of 21. So, you want to try and accelerate stuff, but life gets in the way. So you just want to have a plan and a vision. So, the internal challenges we had were just kind of, we weren't starting from scratch. We're trying to build this while at the same time having our old legacy brand of Butler and Associates. And, so one of the things that we did that I'm really good at is the in-person networking component. And so being a part of local associations, I was out door knocking 20 to 30 veterinary practices a month, but also at the same time working on building our brand within the local marketplace of associations. And those two things combined were really how we got a foothold in the marketplace to launch the brand. In spite of, some of those challenges, the internal challenges we had weren't as big as some of the external challenges. COVID, the agency acquisition, that basically put everything on pause for, as Carey, I'm sure, can talk about in your last podcast with Rob Bowen, or one of your recent podcasts with Rob Bowen highlights, you think something's going to be 3 weeks and it winds up being 6 months. And so,
Heck yeah.
So that slowed us down quite a bit, but it was good for the agency.
So, Bill, tell me what the makeup is today of how much of your business is still general and how much of your business is niche. And then I have a couple other questions for you.
Yeah. So, real simply, our veterinary book of business is 10% or 10 to 12% of our total premium volume. So, that's grown from 0 to, 12%. I don't have a target goal to grow that to, other than I've got a number goal of veterinarians that I've set for myself to try and insure in the next few years. And where that winds up premium volume wise over the whole agency. I mean, it's a moving target just with hard market on our existing book of business. So
yeah. So obviously you found the right niche and it happened to be veterinarian, but for every agency out there, I think there's some steps you need to go to in order to figure out what niche is right for you. Did you do any internal maybe you didn't for veterinary, but did you do any internal where you mine your own book of business, see where there's success, or is there an affinity of people on your staff that are passionate about a certain thing that they can connect to? And is that what you plan to do for niche number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in Butler Insurance?
Yeah.
Butler Associates. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think, for us, we did have one veterinary practice as part of our book of business that, we had gotten as a referral. I think every insurance agency out there has one of something that might become their niche. We had one veterinary practice. And that was how I said, hey, the premiums here is pretty good. The service is pretty good. They're nice people. And so it was a business that I decided to target. I would say there's probably 2 to 3 things you want to do on the get-go. Number one, is it a business that you want to work with? If it's a business that, you don't want to work with, don't do that as a niche, because you're going to be spending a lot of time with these people as clients. You're going to be marketing to them. You're going to be doing a lot of stuff in that world. And so if that's a business or a class of business owner that you don't want to spend a lot of time with, don't target that niche. So have an affinity towards them as business owners in that industry. You want to find out if there's enough revenue at your agency. For us in the veterinary model, it is large enough that it warrants the investment of time and energy. Chiropractors, as I found out, did not when I really got down to it. And so does the math work? Are there enough in your area? I had another insurance agent reach out to me that's in a different part of the country and said, hey, if I want to go after veterinarians, can I do this? And I'm like, well, I don't own the marketplace. If you want to do it, go ahead. But they're in a rural state. And I said, well, how many are within 100 miles of your office? And if there's only 3, I wouldn't go to Travelers Insurance and say, hey, I'm going to do a niche for veterinarians or XYZ. You can't even drive to one without spending 3 hours in the car. Probably not a good niche to go after. So I think there's just some things like that, Carey, that you really want to hammer down on. Do you have an affinity towards it? Is it a money? Is the revenue there? And then also, do you have markets available? Because just trying, as Lindsay alluded to, I did need to get a market for large animal or mixed practice. That's not something that the standard carriers want to go with. And so just understanding, do you have a market available, the markets needed to target that niche? And if you don't, can you get them?
Right. How did you navigate that? Did you go directly to carriers? Did you go through a network? What was that like for you?
Yeah. So, the business I'm writing is boppable business. So I think for, if you are a listening out there and you're a, again, use my words, mom and pop insurance agent or, a heavy personal lines agency, and you have some commercial markets, look at what I wouldn't go after what the carriers are telling you to go for. I'd say, what do you want to write that agents aren't writing? Don't go after the hit list, because the carrier reps, nothing against them. They come in and say, hey, this is our hot list. This is what everyone's written in the last 2 months. Well, don't write that. That's what they want you to write, or that's what everyone else is writing. Go after stuff people aren't writing that they do want to write. And, go after business that's easy to write. And by easy, I mean a BOP. It's a homeowner's policy, but it's a commercial policy. And so if your experience in life as an insurance agent is personal insurance, writing a BOP isn't that much different. Rely on your carriers, go to your commercial underwriters and say, hey, how do I write a BOP? What coverages should I have on this policy for this market? They'll help you because they want to write business too. And so, we didn't have to get a lot of markets for what we did, because everything that we're doing, Travelers wants to write, Hartford wants to write, Nationwide wants to write. Again, there was some uniques inside my industry of veterinarians with a mixed practice or a mobile practice that they don't want to do. So I needed to find a singular market to fill that need. But that wasn't the overall, the need. That was for more one-offs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you did something pretty unique though. And I have several agencies that I work with that have pretty well-defined niches. There's no two ways around that. And they all have gotten there in different ways. But you did something that not all of them do, I will tell you. There's some commonality, like understand their business, and then all of a sudden they're going to refer you to other people and say, don't deal with an agent that doesn't understand your business, deal with someone who actually does it. You took that a whole nother step further and actually wrote a book about veterinarian. So tell me, first of all, what research did you have to do in order to make that happen? And what even gave you the idea to move that as one of your strategies in order to build this niche?
Well, as my good friend and mentor, Mike Stromso, has told me many, many times, why should somebody choose to do business with you over and above any and all other options? And so, if you go to freeveterinaryinsurancebook.com, there's my book. It's available to the public. You can get a copy of it. And so it separates me from every other insurance agency out there who says, oh yeah, we insure veterinarians. Yes, but did you write the book on veterinary insurance? No, we did. That's my marketing. I wrote the book on veterinary insurance. Butler Vet Insurance wrote the book on veterinary insurance. And so it just differentiates you from everyone else in the marketplace. It cuts out the noise. I just looked, why did I do it, Carey? I looked at every other successful insurance agency out there who's really dove into niches, and they have done something. They've written a book. Russ Castle, a good friend of mine, wrote a book on, habitational insurance. It just immediately makes you the authority in the marketplace. For those of you looking along, this is a $3 business card. If I give you a book, you're not going to throw it away. But if I hand you a business card, what's more valuable? The
book, for sure.
Yeah, this business card or this book? You're not going to throw the book away, especially if I personalize it. To Carey, thanks for all you do for our animal friends, Bill Butler. That's going to hang around for a long time. And in the marketing world, everything we do needs to have some sort of I want it to hang around component. Then the next component to that is, well, what else can I do? And with Lindsay's help, I launched Butler Veterinary Blueprints podcast, which is a podcast for veterinarians on entrepreneurship and business ideas inside the veterinary community. And so it's really just about differentiating yourself from the marketplace. I can do a marketing piece, and, to talk about the research, Carey, I just wrote the book as I would sit down and talk with any veterinarian about insurance concepts. Nothing special. Any insurance agent can write a book about insurance specific to an industry. What does an auto repair shop need to contemplate as it relates to garage keeper's liability? Just sit down and write 1,000 words on what garage keeper's liability means to an auto repair shop or workers' compensation or, whatever it is. And then you put it into a book and all of a sudden you're a genius and everyone thinks you're the smartest person in the world. And all I did was put an insurance appointment into a book format.
Well, there is a story I'd love for you to share. And if you've already shared it, I don't care because I think it's a pretty cool story.
Yep.
So you and I were at a conference together, and it just so happened that there was another conference in the same location. Tell our listeners what happened because you wrote this book and because the other agents at the conference know you wrote this book and think of you as the person. Would you mind sharing the story of how this small thing, you might think of it's a small thing, turns into something pretty nice?
Yeah. And so the story that Carey's referencing is I was out at a insurance conference out in San Diego, California with a bunch of other insurance agents. One agent that I knows I specialize in veterinarians was riding the airport shuttle bus with just some other people. And it was her and one other woman and maybe somebody else on the shuttle bus. And, you strike up the conversation. Oh, what are you here for? I'm here for an insurance conference. Oh, I'm here because I do brokering of veterinary practices. So they're a broker that helps veterinarians buy and sell veterinary practices. And this insurance agent friend of ours, friend of mine up in Anchorage, Alaska, Lynette Wood said, oh, well, you must know Bill Butler. He wrote a book about veterinary insurance. No, I've never heard of Bill. Oh, he's going to be at this conference. I'll have to get him introduced to you. So they had arrived a little earlier than I did. I arrived at the bar where all as we do at insurance conferences, we all are hanging out in the bar, and I saw Lynette.
I don't know what you're talking about, Bill. Yeah. I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Everybody knows what I'm talking about. And so Lynette comes running up to me and says, Bill, I have to introduce you to this woman. And she tells me the story of the shuttle bus. And I said, wait right here, ran up to my room, got a book, walked over. She introduced me to this woman. And from there, I said, hey, I'd love to meet you. She happened to be there for a conference of all of her associates who do buying and selling of veterinary practices. Right there, introduction. And so it puts you on a different level than everyone else, because when somebody thinks of insurance and they think of veterinarians, in my circle of people, I am the only person I want them to think about. Having a book, having a podcast, being all in, having a specific brand, all of those things separate me from any other insurance agent who does these things. And so, having that book to hand that broker it wasn't just a business, like, here's a business card, I do veterinary insurance, here's a book, I know what I'm talking about, even though it's just basic insurance concepts.
So throughout this whole process, how are you how are you measuring success of the niche? I know you mentioned you have a number of goal of veterinary practices you want to insure, but what does success actually look like for you with this?
Yeah. So I'm going to actually go back to a book that I've read many, many, many times called The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale. And his definition of success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And so, there's monetary success, there's financial success, there's, I want to insure X number of veterinary practices. And while I do have a numerical goal, I think at the end of the day for me, I'm getting my bills paid, the agency's successful. I feel that the team feels, valued and worthwhile at their business, at what we do here at Butler and Associates. At the end of the day, it's about protecting veterinarians and building the thing. I love building the thing. And so, we have, sales goals and everything else like every other insurance agency has. But at the end of the day, I'm measuring our success by things I'm being invited to do, networks that I'm being invited to join, places that I'm getting to go that other insurance professionals don't even know exist if they're going to insure a veterinary practice. Carey and I have joked since you guys launched this podcast, and she said, well, why didn't you come on the podcast? And I said, I don't want to give away all my secrets. Everyone will try and do veterinary insurance. I know right now that for somebody to do what I've done, and this isn't, that I'm special or better than anybody else, because any good insurance agent out there can do this. It's just, I know more about the veterinary community, how it works, everything else, more than any other insurance agent. It would literally take them years to do what I've done, because it took me years to do what I've done. And not that you can short circuit that just because of the way the industry is modeled. But what does success look like? At the end of the day, I've had evaluation from Carey Wallace and Agency Focus. I have some very specific goals that I want to try and accomplish with my agency and get it to a certain point by a certain age in my life. And I know that if I do the right things here inside this niche, that I will be able to accomplish those things and get the number that I want to get, because my EBITDA is in the right place at the right time when I want to sell. And so having a niche also helps X the X.
I got to tell you, man, I am loving hearing those words come out of your mouth, my friend. But it's one of the many things. But if someone's not thinking about, how do I build the strongest business I can? How do I do it in a way that's scalable? How do I, you didn't say I want my niche to be 100% of my agency, because those aren't transferable. So the thing is, the niche isn't the only solution. It is one of many solutions to build a super strong agency. And you have to look at it in totality, not necessarily as it's the only saving grace that you've got. Because a single niche based agency, for instance, if you only did oil and gas in the middle of COVID, guess what? It wasn't real fun.
Yeah.
Like, it was a really big roller coaster. Or if you only did restaurants in the middle of COVID, not a super fun thing to be in, right?
Yeah.
And half your niche might have actually gone out of business. Yeah. So you also have to be smart about the niches that you're picking and what they do to the rest of your business.
Yeah.
So an agency that picks trucking as their niche, that has a loss ratio that's different than a generalist, might not be the best choice, because the totality of it might not make sense. There's a lot of things to consider, but I think you gave our listeners a lot of things to think about, and what things maybe to avoid doing as you're trying to figure out your way, right?
Well, I think, the thing that insurance agents look at, and they look at, I've heard many, many times, just because I've been on this niche journey of trying to build a niche, whatever it might be, for a long time, is contractors and trucking. And the reason that people mention, insurance agents mention contractors and trucking over and over again, is higher premium volumes. Oh, the premium might be good. Well, what's the service work involved? How much service work, how many VAs, how many certificates, all of those things. That's not a path that we wanted to go down as an insurance agency. So I purposefully picked niches that I thought would have low service, maybe lower premium volumes, but also low service work. Because just because the higher premium doesn't mean that you've got less work to do. So, all those things come into play when you're trying to build out your niche and figure out what you want to do.
So, Bill, if you were going to give advice to someone who's like, listen, I know I need to do this. We've been a generalist for a long time. What are the top 3 things you would tell someone to do before they jump in with both feet?
I would interview your best clients in that niche to ask them what service that you can provide to them. And if you don't have any, go to your local chamber of commerce and identify, okay, these are 3 business classes that I think I want to target. Identify 3 to 5 business owners, come up with a great list of questions about what struggles they have with insurance, what works well, what doesn't work well, and not with an expectation of selling insurance, just an expectation of doing market research. Then I would research the marketplace from an insurance and revenue perspective. And, how much revenue is this going to generate? How much premium will this generate? Do I have markets available? And then last, and, maybe first, but put this last or first, just one of the 3 is, do I want to work with these people? Are these people that I want to spend time with? Are these people that business owners that I want to associate with? Are these business owners that I feel a passion towards helping? And so, just to kind of wrap up, why I chose veterinarians, I have in my hand here my 6th grade paper that I wrote on vets And people often think, Butler Vet Insurance is our name. I was spent 12 years in the Army. It's actually veterinarians, not vets, as veterans. But this is my 6th grade library handwriting study skills class, one of the very few A's that I ever received in any coursework ever outside of shop class. And I wrote a paper on why veterinarians are key to society. And I didn't really have something that I said, I want to go to college to be a veterinarian after I got into high school, but I've always had an affinity towards this industry. I've always owned animals. I always thought veterinarians were a higher calling or purpose. They do something different. And so, my mom dug that up when she moved recently and downsized. And she said, hey, I've got to give this to you because I think this is really neat that what your passion is now for insurance ties into something you did when you were, 13 years old. And so, that's something that you can tie in or draw from, even if you don't insure any of those things. And, I show this to veterinarians when I meet with them. I say, hey, I love your industry. I wrote a paper in 6th grade about it. And, to tie into the insurance piece, I was also doom and gloom back then, Carey, not just now. And I'll read.
That's so hard to believe, Bill. I don't understand.
I'll read you the last paragraph from my 6th grade study skills class. Our society would be in serious trouble without a vet. Cattle would be dying. People all over the continent would have rabies because there wouldn't be a vet to go vaccinate the dogs or cats. People don't realize how much a vet has to contribute to our society.
Young Bill Butler has not fallen far from the tree, my friends. That is awesome. I love that you have that, though. I mean, honestly, you're talking about it. I'm like, how do I get that thing framed in his office for him? Like, that's amazing.
I can't frame it because I bring it to appointments with me.
Yeah. Well, we got to figure out a way. Yeah, we got to figure out a way. But the thing is, don't try and do something you don't care about.
Yeah.
Like, why in the world would you focus on something that you don't care about? So I love it. I think that you've given a lot of our listeners some things to think about. And I appreciate that you finally agreed to come on our podcast. See, we're really nice people. Hello. Like, this was not
nice
painful
people.
at all. Yeah. So, yeah. It's funny. Anyway, if someone wants to reach out to you, Bill, and they want to say, like, I'd love to pick your brain, I'd love to bounce some ideas off of you, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, first, I've got a $200 an hour consulting fee with a minimum of 10 hours. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll remember that next time you need podcast help.
That's right.
Exactly.
You always have a minimum. Yeah. I mean, if any agents out there want to reach out to me, I'll give Lindsay the information for the show notes. Bill at insurewithbutler.com is my email address. They can get a hold of me through that. 952-953-3838 is our general agency phone number. I'm just passionate about helping insurance agents out there. If there's an insurance agent that, says, what do I do to build a niche? Hey, I'll give you a 15-minute phone call to help you out with that. It's not rocket science. It's just, you have to be committed, and it's a lot of hard work. The only time work comes before money is in the dictionary. The only time money comes before work is in the dictionary. Let me rephrase that. And the only people who make money work in the mint. So, you don't make money, you earn it, and you've got to do the hard work and invest the time.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, Bill. Thank you very much for being our guest and for being such a good friend. And I hope to talk to you and see you soon.
I hope so too.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Insurance Refocused podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to hit subscribe and leave us a review so you'll never miss us. Want to learn more about how Agency Focus can help you grow your agency? Head to agency-focus.com or email Carey directly at carey@agency-focus.com. If you need to get in touch with me, feel free to shoot me an email at lindsay@agency-focus.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.